Hey everybody and welcome back. So recently we made a video on how to write Bareacts in the mains Judicial Services Exam. So which part of the Bareact you write? Do you write the entire section? Do you write a part of it? If you haven't seen that video, we can link it on the screen and you can go watch that. But we recently got a question about how to memorize Bareacts. So there are a lot of exams which are coming up. There is Delhi, there is MP Judiciary, there is Haryana. There's a lot of exams which are lined up. So we got a question that how to memorize Bareacts for the PT and also for the mains, and how to go through so many sections, how to remember which part. So the first things first, let's get it out of the way. The only way that you can really memorize anything is through revision. So that's very important, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But we will also be teaching you today how to read the Bareact in a way that it is easy for you to memorize it, so you get the crux of the Bareact, how you can make your own notes on a section which you can keep aside, and like one section you can make notes on all important sections. These will be quick bullet pointer notes, and you can quickly revise them, and the more revisions you do, the more you will be able to learn it. And you can similarly make notes also for the law part of it. So any judgment, the name of the judgment, what were the main facts of the judgment, what were the issues in the judgment, what was quickly held in the judgment, if they used any precedent or they used any past case or a judgment on which this judgment based its decision on. So quickly make those kind of notes and keep them aside. Once you do them, it's going to be really easy for you to revise both the Bareact sections and the judgments. But today we are concentrating only on the Bareact sections. If you want us to show you also how to make notes on judgments, we can do that as well, or how to make notes on an entire topic, we can do that as well. But today let's just stick with the Bareact and go one thing at a time, just so that we don't get you overwhelmed. So this is a question that we recently got, saying that with all these PT exams and mains exams coming up, how to memorize Bareacts. So the first part is, for you to be able to memorize Bareacts, you will have to understand it. If you don't understand it, then you will only be doing rote learning, which is not helpful in the long run. Rote learning is where you say people just mug up a section before the exam, or you may have done it during your school exams where you just mug up things quickly before the exams, but you don't really understand them, and you will be able to reproduce a certain part of it in the exam next day or soon after, but you won't really get a grasp of the concept. So it's important for you to understand the section, and then it will be very easy for you to memorize it. And for this we will use another example to show you how to understand a section and how to memorize it, how to make notes on it. So we recently showed you how to write the Bareact in the exam, and for that we used the section 32 of the Indian Evidence Act. Just for the sake of your understanding and to keep it really easy, we will again use that same section. Don't forget, we have an entire series on dying declaration. So if you don't understand the concept of dying declaration, or you want judgments on it, you want to understand the whole dying declaration with the sections and judgments and everything together, we have an entire series on it, and we can link it on your screen. You can watch it. Today we are not giving you the entire section, we're not giving you the judgments on it, we're just telling you how to read the Bareact and how to memorize it. So let's read the Bareact together. It says section 32 of Indian Evidence Act. Now this is only an example, you will have to do this for every section, but mostly for the important sections. The other sections you can just quickly read and know what the part is, but for important sections you have to do what we are going to do today. Section 32 of the Indian Evidence Act. Section 32 says, cases in which the statement of a relevant fact by a person who is dead or cannot be found is relevant. So it says cases in which statements of relevant fact by a person who is dead or cannot be found is relevant. So it is talking about cases or instances in which statements of a relevant fact by a person who is dead or cannot be found. So this is what you need to understand and quickly write in your notes. Section 32, which is relevant statements. Now I'm just writing RS, but you can write the full thing. Relevant statements by a person who is dead or cannot be found. So this is the heading that you would write in your notes. So then it says statements written or verbal of a relevant fact. It is written or verbal of a relevant fact. For this you will have to understand relevant fact under Indian Evidence Act, and that is for a different time. But it says written or verbal statements regarding a relevant fact, not any fact, just a relevant fact, made by a person who is dead or cannot be found, or who has been incapable of giving evidence, or whose attendance cannot be produced or procured without amount of delay or expense, under the circumstance of the case appears to the court unreasonable, are themselves relevant facts. So these kind of statements, which are either written or verbal by a person who is dead, cannot be found, incapable, etc., these statements themselves become relevant facts. So you will write over here in your notes, statements themselves are relevant facts when it is by a person who's made it regarding a relevant fact, who's made the statement regarding a relevant fact, but this person is either dead or incapable or cannot be found, or it would be very expensive, or it would be unreasonable to get the person to the court to give a statement. So right now in your notes you have 2 points. One is that the heading of the section, and then this section is regarding statements which themselves become relevant facts when they are made by a person regarding a certain relevant fact. So these statements themselves are relevant facts. This is the most important thing that you need to remember in the second line. Now, section 32, clause 1 is a statement regarding the cause of death. In this it says when the statement is made by a person as to the cause of his death or as to any circumstance of the transaction. So it can be regarding the cause of the death, that my death was caused by so and so person stabbing me, or it can be regarding a circumstance of the transaction. So if there is a whole transaction in which he left the house and it ended with his death, so between the starting point and the ending point, the entire transaction, if there is any circumstance of this entire transaction, from him leaving the house to his death, any statement regarding the circumstance of this transaction, so any circumstance that happened from starting point A to his death, if he makes a statement regarding it, that will also be relevant, which ultimately resulted in his death. In cases in which the cause of that person's death comes into question, such statements are relevant whether the person who made them was or not at the time under expectation of death, and whatever be the nature of proceedings in which it comes into question. So now you've read the section, now you will make your own notes on it. Right now you know the heading of the section, you know that this is a section in which the statement itself becomes a relevant fact, and now 32 clause 1, which is the most important part of this section, which is regarding the dying declaration. So it is about the cause of death or a circumstance of the transaction which ultimately resulted in death. So you will write here that it is made by a person whose death is in question. It can be regarding the cause of his death or a circumstance of the transaction which ultimately resulted in his death. So if there is a huge transaction and there is any circumstance that happened in between and he makes a statement regarding any of these circumstances, it will also be a relevant fact. This statement will also be relevant. So it can be a statement regarding cause of death or circumstance of the transaction. And this will be relevant in cases in which, in any case in which it comes into question. So if the death is in question in any sort of case, then these kind of statements become relevant, either regarding the cause of death or the circumstance. And the fourth part of this section was that the person does not have to be under expectation of death. And the last is, it does not matter what is the nature of proceedings in which this comes into question. So it can be civil, it can be criminal, whatever be the nature of the proceedings. So these are the important parts of this section. This will be in your notes, starting from here to here. Starts from section 32, clause 1. What is the meaning of this section? What does this section deal with? It is regarding a statement which is made for the cause of death or a circumstance of the transaction. Who is it made by? What is the statement regarding? In these cases, the statement itself becomes a relevant fact. In what cases the statement has to be made? When the person is either dead, incapable, it is too expensive to get him or her, and the person cannot be found. In those cases, these kind of statements, whether made orally or whether made verbally or written, will become relevant facts themselves. So you've taken the entire section and you've written it in like 7 small lines, which is 7 small points. Now you've understood the section entirely and you have these 7 small points in your notes. Now when you go back to your notes, it will be very easy for you to revise it. You need to do this for every section, at least for every important section. You understand the section first, only then you will be able to memorize it. And the more times you revise it, the more it will be easy for you to memorize it, especially when it comes to section numbers. For section numbers, there is no way but that you keep revising it over and over and over again. After you've studied, after you finish studying, whenever you're walking around doing something else, just go back in your mind and revise it. See what was the section number for it. Was it section 32 clause 1, 32 clause 2? The more times you revise it, the more easy it will be for you to understand and to memorize it. So that's our advice, that you understand the section, and this has to be done in detail. You can't just go over the section once. You have to understand the section, then you have to make your own notes in which you have quick points that you can easily go back and revise, and then you keep revising it over and over and over again. This is the only way that you can memorize the Bareacts, and it is very important that you are good in the sections, you understand the sections, you're good in law, you have a strong foundation. Understanding is very important. This will help you not just in PT, mains, but your entire law career. So you have to understand the sections, you have to make your own notes, and you have to keep revising it. That's the only way you can revise the Bareacts. And one other thing that you can do after this is that you go back to the past year papers and you try and solve them, or you try and solve the MCQ books. With these, you will consolidate your memory. You will be able to remember better once you mark the answers in these MCQ books or in the past year papers. That will be another form of revision for you. So you understand them, you make notes, revise, in your head, revise multiple times, and then you solve past year papers and do MCQ books. That's the only way that you can memorize Bareacts for both PT, mains, and forever. We hope this helps you. If you have any more of these questions, we are more than happy to help. We understand that these kind of questions can be a huge impediment, they can be a big obstacle, and you can get confounded with them. So if you have any of these questions, we are here to help. We're always looking for questions that we can solve for you. So if you have these kind of questions, leave them in the comments, and next time maybe we will try and solve your query. We hope this helps. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and good luck.